He's like, hey, I
Yep.
bought this selling paper. Here's how I did it. Buy my course. I'm like,
Mm,
well, okay. He was talking about wholesaling. I'm like, well, that makes sense.
yeah.
That sounds kind of legal. So, so, so I said, if he learned without a course, then that's what I'll do. So then I went
Right.
to YouTube and then, pretty much just learned what it is, you know,
Okay.
but yeah, at that point had no idea where to start.
To do better in their business, but I also have to.
I don't know how to do it.
Hey, everyone out there in YouTube land and Metro Detroit Off Market Real Estate Group, if you are watching or if you're watching the replay, welcome. We are trying to get this out there as much as possible. We are having some technical difficulties getting to the Facebook group just because StreamYard had some issues with they deleted going straight to Facebook groups for some reason. So keep a lookout on there. Otherwise, the best place to watch this is on our YouTube channel, Randy Stedwell at Randy Stedwell on YouTube. So you can ask questions live, you can catch us live, and kind of go from there. So, without further ado, today I have a great gentleman with me. His name is Jordan Smith. He is an awesome person. When I first met him, he was just learning about wholesaling, trying to figure out what to do. He had a couple other things going on, and we talked him through. And ever since then, I've just seen him take action upon action upon action. I see nothing but success coming from him. So, we're on here to kind of bring him on here to share his story, what he's been doing, and the reason why he's been doing it, so that we can help others and other people out there can see what he's doing. So, without further ado, Jordan, how you doing today?
I'm doing all right, Randy. How are you?
I'm doing awesome, doing awesome. So, tell me a little bit about we'll kind of go straight into this a little bit, but how did you come about real estate and know you want to get into real estate? We'll take wholesaling away from it at the moment. Let's just talk about real estate in general.
Well, real estate, my grandpa was always in real estate.
Okay.
He worked at General Motors, was paid really well. I forget what job position he had there, but used that money, bought a bunch of rentals,
Mm-hmm.
and then, you know, so I guess it's running the family. And then my dad used to do flips before the '08 thing, so I grew up watching him build houses. Just kind of ran in the family, I guess.
That's awesome. So you grew up kind of, looking through these and seeing what you have to do, knowing a little bit about rentals, things like that.
Very minimal.
Very minimal though. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I
did
never
did they
really tried to learn how to do it at the time.
did they get you for free labor when you were a kid?
No, I was young enough to where I was just kind of um yeah, I remember just sitting there playing with my dad's tools while he was building a laundry room.
That's awesome though. But
Little tile
those are great
spacers and
those
stacking
are
his
great
money like men.
memories. Those are great memories. So let's fast forward a little bit. How old are you right now?
22.
You're 22. Okay. And when did you start wanting to get into real estate yourself?
Really, that was about probably maybe 3.5 years ago.
Okay. So you're about 18-ish, 18,
Yeah,
19.
yeah,
Okay. Just out of high school.
yep,
Okay.
yeah. It was
So why
yeah, same year I was graduating. Yeah.
Same year you were graduating. Okay. And what made you decide you wanted to get into real estate? What was that thought process?
Honestly, I forget the name of the guy, but I was scrolling through TikTok and there
With your
was,
generation, it's always about TikTok, huh?
I used to be, uh, not gonna lie. But yeah, there was this guy, it was an ad
Okay.
and, uh, he like pointed the video at his log cabin. He's like, "Hey, I
Yep.
bought this selling paper. Here's how I did it. Buy my course." I'm like,
Mm,
"Well, okay." He was talking about wholesaling. I'm like, "Well, that makes sense.
yeah.
That sounds kind of legal." So, so, so I said, if he learned without a course, then that's what I'll do. So then I went
Right.
to YouTube and then, pretty much just learned what it is, you know,
Okay.
but yeah, at that point had no idea where to start.
All right. So, so you went to YouTube, you learned about wholesaling on TikTok, and you're like, okay, I need to do a deeper dive into this because I
Right.
don't purchase this guy's course. Um, well, what when you came across YouTube, it's like, okay, at least they tell me what it is, but not necessarily everything I need to know. Is that
hmm
right?
Right. Or it was the problem with YouTube was this guy would say one thing and then this guy would say a similar thing, but it was different.
Hmm.
So you'd think they were
Yep.
the same or whatever.
Hmm.
Everyone's got their own way of doing things. And problem with YouTube is you get it all with
Right.
no way to separate what works together and what doesn't.
Right. So, and that's the issue is you don't know. And this is what I tell people constantly is that you have to pick someone to follow and then just kind of follow them. You can't keep bouncing around, and that's a big problem with YouTube. Is that you get one person, then you'll get 10 others, and they may contradict each other. They may not. One person may want to go one strategy, the other 10 people want to go 10 different other ways. So
hmm
now you're learning 10 different ways, and it's like the old saying, I, you know, was it, you can do all of them, but you're the master of none.
Yep. Jack of all trades,
Jack
master
of
of none.
all, thank
Yep.
you. That's the saying. Jack of all trades, but not master of none. You know, um, it's like, okay, no, you need to master one, then go to the next, then go to the next, and so on and so forth. You
hmm
know, so tell me a little bit about, you know, after you started doing the YouTube, you learn about what it is. How did you come across everything else?
Well, I eventually did gather enough, information from YouTube to, um, I jumped on to get the basics of it. So then,
Yep.
um, of course, I didn't get the part that this doesn't really work on the MLS. So I jumped on Zillow and yeah,
Okay.
I jumped on Zillow, started, calling the listings,
Yep.
trying to act as a buyer but not tell them because that's what YouTube told me to do.
Yep.
And then and then um like one of the first couple agents that picked up the phone, just knew exactly what I was doing and and what I was
Yeah.
trying to do. And then he's like, his name is Adam, and um, you know, he was just real cool about it. He's like, "Hey, why don't I go buy you a lunch tomorrow?" And then,
Hmm.
we sit down and, what you're trying to do is called wholesaling, by the way. And
It's like, oh, dang it, fuck.
yeah, yeah. So then went and sat down with him and then, he kind of pointed me in the different programs, the direction of the different programs, he showed me, Propstream, um, and then he was actually pretty neat. He gave me a house that he was selling, but he hadn't put
Hmm.
it on the market yet, and he let me put it under contract with him, and then it didn't end up selling, but because I didn't know how to sell it. But
Right.
basically just kind of do a practice run, you know, of the seller
Hmm.
side.
Oh, okay. I mean, that was nice of him. He knew exactly what you were doing. So,
Hmm.
um, you know, and so that obviously that wasn't your first deal or anything like that.
Right.
So did you keep doing deals with him? How did you get more deals? How did you get that thought process going forward? Did you like, hey, I need to do something different? um, Where'd you go from there? And by the way, anybody who does want Propstream, we also have batch leads as well. We do have some affiliate links in the bottom. You do get a 7-day free trial for either Propstream or batch leads. We also have batch dialer as well. All of them are really good programs to use, and I have used them. So, all right, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry, what was the question?
So what happened next after this failed attempt of wholesaling that this really gracious you know agent basically helped you out here and allowed you to get under contract. So
Hmm.
what happened after that? Did your thought process of, okay, do I need to change something? Did I just need to keep going at what we're doing? Do I need to change my numbers? Like, how I'm analyzing the property? Like, what was your thought process going through that?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I would have to, jump back to the lunch meeting I had with him, and he's like,
Yep.
what you're trying to do doesn't work on the market. You
Ah,
can't.
okay.
Yeah, he explained, you can't call up an agent on the phone and,
Hmm.
you know, try and wholesale their on-market property.
Right.
Um, but yeah, then he showed me how to use, PropStream, pull lists from there. So I pulled some list of like, I forget exactly what list it was. I think it was a combination of a bunch of different ones.
Okay.
Um, skip traced them, and then it was like 196 houses, which I thought was a huge list at the time, dialing each number one at a time.
Yeah.
Um, and eventually I decided, okay, what I'm doing now isn't working basically. So yeah, tweak it, adjust it, figure out what does work. Um, but yeah, sat down with that list and just said, I'm going to call this list every day until, one of these people sell their houses. And
Hmm.
then uh, day 3 of the phone calls, one of the guys, his name is Brian, real cool, older guy,
Hmm.
who also I didn't know at the time, but he knew what I was doing too. And um, and yeah, he, picks up or calls me back. He's like, hey, yeah, I got a property, in Flint, Michigan. It's like, yeah, I want to get rid of it, evicting the
Hmm.
tenants, whatnot. Gave me the whole story, which, I'll confess, I didn't know what most of it meant, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay,
yeah, I'm
yeah.
like,
All
okay,
right.
someone wants to sell. That's all I cared about. Like,
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, I went and met him, um, in Flint, as much as my mom didn't like that idea, because, um,
That's a pretty sketchy
it,
area.
it was very sketchy area. And yeah, it was one of the worst areas. And then it was one street past that. Like, so,
Okay.
uh, and so meet the guy there. We go look at the house. I get pictures of it. I eventually give him my offer, with my
Hmm.
purchase agreement I downloaded online. And
And where'd
um,
you get the purchase agreement from?
Rick and Zagins freewholesaling.com.
Okay. Awesome.
Um,
Yeah, I came across them and they're really good people. So
yeah,
I don't know them personally, by the way. So I've only seen them on YouTube.
yep.
So
Yeah. No, I like their videos. Their older ones were real informative.
right.
Um, and yeah, basically I looked up the property on Zillow. The
Hmm.
Zillow estimated it was worth 20,000, so I'm like, how about 20,000?
So Zillow estimated 20,000, and
Uh-huh.
you're like, hey, how about 20,000?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's all I knew. I didn't, yeah.
So you had no
I
idea
had no idea what I was
about how to
doing.
run the numbers or
Nope,
anything like that.
nothing.
Okay, I can kind of see where this is going, but continue.
And then signed it with the guy, um, and then put it on Facebook Marketplace the next day, and then real estate Facebook groups, because that's what
Hmm.
Rick and Zach Ginn's YouTube channel said to do,
Yep.
and which is a great plan. And
Oh yeah.
eventually, the messages started coming in of, you know,
Hmm.
buyers, and um, scheduled a few appointments, and
Okay.
they didn't buy it. And then one guy,
But at
uh,
least by doing that and actually getting some callbacks and some appointments, I'm assuming you went through these appointments and you walked through them and you got some experience doing this, right?
yeah, yeah. No, I remember um, the one that bought it. I remember that appointment real well. And
Okay. All
like
right.
he was
Let's go
actually
through
looked at.
that. Yeah,
Okay.
let's go through that because I want to know what you learned about that appointment. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Um,
So how did he find you? I'm assuming in Facebook. Okay.
mhm,
Um,
just a marketplace
and
post.
okay, and you walking through it. Did he teach you what he was doing? Did he let you know that where he needs to be? Like walk me through what that process was like, and
He
what did
would
you
have.
post it for?
I posted it for. Um, I think I posted it for what a different real estate software said it was worth, which was higher than the 20. I think I posted it for like 36,
Okay.
and um, but yeah, that he would have. This guy would have showed me what he was doing, and
Hmm.
everything, but I thought I was supposed to already know that, so I pretended I did.
Okay. All
You
right.
know,
Hey.
I was young, and
Yeah. Sometimes you
um,
gotta fake it till you make it.
yeah. I mean, he
All right.
obviously knew, but um, yeah, just kind of watching him, he actually looked at the condition of the property, which is something I never thought to do, and and
Why
um,
look at the condition? Yeah, it's property. Yeah. Zillow
yeah,
says it's worth
you
this.
can see the
Sure.
you can see the theme here with my whole strategy at the time was to wing it.
Yep. Yep.
um, but yeah, just checking around the toilet and bath, for
Hmm.
water damage or whatever, and I'm like, oh, that's an interesting thing to do. Looking at the plumbing under the sink and making
Okay.
sure it's all there. Um, and yeah, he's sitting there on his notepad, adding up all the repairs and stuff, you know. Um,
Hmm.
and yeah, eventually we step outside, um, and he's like, well, okay, so what's your bottom dollar for it? And I'm like, well, at that time I already knew not to give the price first. So I'm like,
Okay. All
well,
right.
yeah. So I'm like, well, I'm not gonna give the price first.
Like hey, that you know what I'm asking. Come on.
Right. Yeah. I'm like, well, what do you have in mind? And yeah, he offered like 23, and I had it listed for like 36. Um,
Okay.
and yeah, as soon as he offered 23, my voice started shaking because if I'd have accepted that, I would have made $3,000.
Right.
You know.
You're like,
So
okay, we're in profit territory.
yeah, I'm
You
like, this
know,
just started happening. Like,
you're like, all right, I'm in profit territory. Do not show my cards.
uh-huh.
All right.
Yeah, don't show them you're nervous. Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Yep. And then yeah, like every movie, every good movie watcher knows they should
Uh-huh.
do. I went back and offered 33. He
Yep.
offered 24, just bounce back and forth.
Okay.
And then yeah, eventually settled at 26. And I'm like, well, that's okay, great.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah. And then uh went and got the assignment, and then um yeah, just basically signed it with him, and then
And how
he
fast did you
gave the
close?
closed it in about a week.
About a week. Okay.
Hmm.
So
And
that was your
then
first deal, and you made 6 grand off of that, right?
right, yeah,
And what did you learn anything about the title process and how to get that going?
yeah, yeah. After they um after they signed, I'm like, okay, well now I need a title company that actually does wholesales. Because I didn't have that at the time. And
Okay.
then um so basically then called I looked up title companies, you know, in Genesee County,
Yep.
Michigan. And then
And by the way, that's his market. So if there are any buyers that want to contact him, we'll talk to you at the end. His information's in the description, but you know, um, so if you have anybody, if you're a buyer in Genesee County, contact your man Jordan over here. So, all
yeah.
right.
So
Go
basically
ahead.
made a list of every title company in Genesee County
Hmm.
and called them all one by one until hit Liberty Title. And then they're like, yeah, we have a whole branch that does wholesaling. I'm like, great, I'm about to make $6,000. Like,
Oh, awesome. That's awesome. All right. So, and you went through, was there any hiccups with title at all?
uh, yes, yes. There was, yeah, scared me half to death because I almost didn't make anything on it because um, the tenants didn't move out in time. Is my dog?
Mm,
She's interrupting.
that's all right. We're dog
um,
lovers here.
yeah. Um, but yeah, the tenants didn't move out in time, and the buyer calls me up 3 days before, after the closing dates were already set, and then um, he says, "Yeah, I don't think I can buy it. You know, is there any way I can get that deposit back?" And I'm like,
Mm,
absolutely not. Like,
right? Yeah.
you
So
know,
stick to your guns. Yep.
yeah. Um, and then I'm like, why? What's going on? And he's like, well, the tenants haven't moved out yet. And then I'm like, oh, that's not good,
Right.
because they were
Now you
supposed to
have
be
it
out
in,
a week before then.
yeah, you have it in your contract that it's supposed to be vacant, right?
No, which I didn't know I needed to at the
Okay.
time. Yeah, that's what you get for winging it. But
Yep. All right.
so called the seller, and I'm like, hey, have the tenants moved out? The buyer says that
Hmm.
the tenants are still there. And then he's like, yeah, they told me they would move out, but they haven't moved out. I don't really know what to do about it. I'm like, well, now what? You know?
Yeah.
Um, and when he called the buyer back, I'm like, you know, the I don't know. The tenants said they would move out, but they haven't moved out.
Okay.
You know, like I had no idea what to do at the time. And then eventually met with the seller in person.
Hmm.
And then I'm just like, hey, we got to get these people out of here, you
Yeah.
know. like, and then so he went and talked to him, came back, and then he's like, well, okay, they said they'd be out Thursday, which was the day before we were going to close it.
Okay.
And then, eventually they did eventually move out,
Okay.
so I'm like, oh, good.
So it's
know,
interesting how, like the seller didn't want to lift. It sounded like the seller didn't want to lift a finger until you pressed him on it, right?
right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you know what? Sometimes having a conversation with it just gets you a long way, And what
Hmm.
I mean by that is okay, you have the seller, you're trying to have a conversation with the seller, the buyer, buyer has nothing to do with it. He's thinking he's getting a vacant property, you know. But the seller doesn't want to stir up trouble, doesn't want to, they're like, well, you're buying it, hey, whatever, I don't know what to do. It's like, well, do you want me to talk to the tenants? Because you're their landlord right now, not me,
Hmm.
you know. So it wasn't until you pressed him a little bit, to kind of go talk to him. He's like, all right, I gotta get this taken care of. Right.
Right. Yeah. And I can tell you right now, he saw my desperation of my first deal almost not
Yep.
going through,
Okay.
Um, yeah, so being he's an older guy, real nice guy.
Hmm.
Um, just like seeing the young guy getting into the business.
Okay.
Uh, he's like, okay, fine, I'll go deal with it myself. And, you know, so eventually that worked out. And then another thing, of course, they took the keys with them and never gave them back. So the buyer had a locked house.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hey, if that's the hardest thing you have to do, that's what they make drills for.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm
I told,
sorry.
I remember the buyer called me up the morning of closing. He's like, "Am I gonna have this key at closing?" And because this house is locked, I'm like, "Well, the tenants never gave back the key." And she's like, "Well, I don't want a house I can't get into. What's the point in that?"
Right.
And I remember telling him, "There's already a window that's cracked. I'll finish that window and get inside and unlock this house for you." Like I was getting this deal through.
Okay. So I mean, you came up with some creative way. You're thinking on your feet. Again, it goes back to it's what this episode is about. It's you decided to take action and
Just
to
do it.
just do it. Okay.
Hmm.
How can we get this solved? Let's just see what we can do.
There was once a day that I would pray for you. I'd go and misbehave just so you'd notice too. Sneaking looks up and down from across the room. And damn, what a hell of a view.